Hey, everybody, this is Mandy Speaks Up podcast. I am Mandy, and today's episode is going to be super deep. Viewer discretion is advised. I always like to have that at the very beginning because you never know what's going to pop up and what might be triggering. So there is a warning for that, but I am so thankful to be here on my podcast, these continual episodes that I've been having for those that have escaped the Potter's House Church cult, international, worldwide cult. So I am, for those that watch and don't have no idea what we're talking about. So I escaped the Potter's House Church cult. It is a worldwide fellowship, international church disguised as a church, but it is really a cult. It has the checklist, everything. It checks every box for a cult, even for those that are professional, those who study cult environments. This place has been in that box of, yes, it is a cult. And so we are not here to have any interview of, is this place really a cult? No, we're not here to ask that question. Okay, we already know it's a cult. But we're here with a former member of this Potter's House Church cult, and we are going to discuss with her, Tyffany, which I'm so thankful for you to be here. For anybody who's ever shared their story, it is very brave. Okay. And for those that have never been inside of a toxic, very authoritative community that teaches you that you cannot speak up, like you will never speak up, and all the methods that they use to get you to not speak up is real. So if you would have told me in 2015 or 2008 that one day I would be not only sharing my story, but bringing others in to share their stories, I probably would have laughed in your face, because I would have been like, no way, I would be cursed if I shared the stories. I would go to hell if I shared the stories. So I will not do that. But here I am, speaking my story, and now bringing others that are so brave to share their story. So today specifically, we're going to be talking about the judgment and the hatred on the LGBTQ community. And I just want you guys to know that this is Tyffany. So Tyffany, you can introduce yourself and share a little bit about yourself. Who are you as a human being, right? Because in this place, it's like you're not even a human. You become one. If you have a vagina, then you're automatically a minority. You're automatically judged. That's already number one. But I want you to share something else that caused them to have more hatred because of something that you were. It was who you are as a person, as a human being. And so I definitely want to go into that story. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Tyffany.
Hi, my name is Tyffany. I live in Denver, Colorado. Yes, I was definitely part of the cult. And, when you say the word cult, people really they picture what you see on TV, and, were they drinking Kool-Aid? No, but, is it definitely cult? Yes. I think most people who leave the church want to, but they're so terrified because of the scare tactics involved with leaving that they end up either staying for the rest of their life and being miserable, or it takes them a while. But I started going to the church when I was very, very young. I was 13 years old. So this was back in 2001. And I basically entered a very, very small church, it was a pyramid scheme, essentially. So it was one of those little baby churches that had 6 people in it, one of those kind of things. That's where I ended up.
And you were how old?
I was 13.
13 years old. So you're 13 years old. What are they doing to bring a 13-year-old into this this so-called church, this church of love, this church that's going to save you from hell? Is there something that they're doing? Because I don't understand how. I do understand because I was 16, but for the viewers, how is, they may not understand, what are they doing to bring in a 13-year-old? So is your family involved?
So my family was not involved. My brother did end up going to church with me, so he and I went, but my parents were not involved. Didn't really want anything to do with it. I know it made my mom extremely uncomfortable. Like it was nothing like the Baptist church, she grew up in, and she just wasn't having it. I would say that like my brother and I were literally like the perfect like targets or victims for this kind of cult, I guess you could say. We came from an extremely broken home, where my mom uh, wasn't there. My dad raised me the best he could. He was an alcoholic. I had a lot of rage issues and self-esteem issues, and I was just a very lonely, broken person. And so in order to bring people like me in, they do offer that love and that acceptance. And everything is, there's obviously no alcohol or anything, so everything is very food based. Everything is, let's fellowship, let's come into my house and let's eat. And when you're like a little isolated kid who doesn't have any friends or family, you have a crappy home life, your life at school sucks, you're like, wow, these people actually care about me, like they want me around. So I think that's why we stuck around initially, is because we finally felt like we belonged, I guess, or somebody cared about us.
So how old was your brother?
He was 2 years older than me, so he was 15.
So you, a 15-year-old and 13-year-old. So are they adults? Like, are they adults that are inviting you into their homes?
Definitely. Like there was no one our age, so these were the people, like they would be in their 20s or 30s, and we'd go to their house and hang out and do things with them all the time. So like, we're literally these teenagers hanging out with adults.
Yeah, that to me, that is a red flag right there. I always think, now being a mother, I think what I have done, if my 13-year-old daughter would, come home and say like she's spending time with these adults in their homes. Like for me, I'm like, wait a minute, why do a bunch of adults want to hang out with some teenagers? That right there is very confusing.
Right.
But of course, it is a tactic used because I think the younger, the better, in their eyes, because the younger you are, the more moldable you are, and they can easily manipulate you and groom you and get away with even the abuse that goes on in that place. And so, go ahead and talk me into so how long did you stay in there, and what was going on in between those years? What kept you there?
So let's see. I was 13 when I joined, and I think I officially left the church in my late 20s, in like the very end of 2013 or so. I would say the past like 4 years that I was there, I really, really struggled to be there. I didn't want to be there anymore. Like, at this point in time, a lot had transpired as far as my sexuality and stuff. But I was also terrified to leave because they were very much like, when you leave the church, God takes his hand of protection off of you and you are cursed and your life will fall apart. And they would always say, like, all the sin that you had, it's going to come back 7 times. And they would use these tactics, especially with hell. And you're like, anytime you get like a beating of your heart, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have a stroke. God's punishing me. Like, I'm going to die. Like, so really the fear is what kept me there. Initially, like I ended up getting involved, and I didn't have a lot of friendships. Obviously, it was a very small church, but um, I really just got gung ho into trying to be the best little Christian I was. I didn't actually realize or understand that I was gay myself, because it was just who I was. It wasn't until the church started having issues with my behavior, that I was even started to be targeted, I guess, for being gay. And yeah, it was, I don't know. I didn't know I was gay. I didn't know I was evil or wrong or immoral. So when I was told that I was, it really kind of shook me, because this is just who I was. I didn't know that I was different than anybody else.
Right. And because you were different according to their standards, that's what the issue was, right? Because this cult has no problem recruiting like different races and colors, but it is according to their standard, according to their book. When you are different, or you become different, or you want to be different, whether it's wanting to dress different, wanting to look different, or anything sexually, your sexuality, whatever your gender preference, like when you go into something that they do not accept, then you instantly become an issue and a problem. But they don't want to kick you out yet, okay? Because you initially, eventually you get kicked out, and we'll get into that. But they don't want to kick you out at first, right? Because they want to convert you, and they want to put you back in their box. So can you tell us what kind of, what was going on? What were they saying that would make you feel like, what? I'm wrong? Like, what would they say? What would they do to shame you, or to make you feel bad, or to make you feel that because you're gay now, something bad's going to happen to you, and you've got to get straight?
Straight. They like I said, I had crushes on girls since I was 4 or 5 years old, and I had crushes on little kids growing up the way any normal straight person would have a crush on someone else. Like I didn't know there was a name for what I was. It was what it was. And when I was in church, I think I was about 15 at the time. There was a girl in church, and um I had feelings for her, and she actually did kind of have feelings for me too, honestly, even though she was straight. But that's just kind of how it was. You're not allowed to talk to boys, so you kind of end up with these really gender bended relationships. But I remember my I guess you can call him the youth pastor. He was just literally, he was the pastor's son, but he was our youth pastor. And he was just like, it's wrong how you feel about this girl. You care about her too much. And I was like, I don't, what do you mean, like, by that? Like, and he's like, you have feelings for her. That's wrong. And I'm like, but she's my friend, and I care about her, and I want her to be okay. And he's like, no, you like her the way that you should like a boy, and that's not okay. Like, you have, he's like, he's like, that's a demon spirit. Homosexuality is a demon spirit. We can't have that in the church. We can't have you infecting other people. But it was like, God can deliver you, though. Like, God can remove this curse from your life. Like, and even if it's not your fault, it's probably generational. They're like, oh, if it's not you, it's because somebody in your family was gay, and now look at you, you're cursed. So from that point on, it became a struggle, because every female that I was close to, like, they kind of treated me like I was a predator.
Oh. Yeah. And predator, let's get into the predator. So they're saying they're making you feel like a predator. They're making you feel shamed. But let's talk about some other things that were going on while they were looking at you in that way, and making you feel like now you're cursed unless you get rid of these feelings, and unless you get rid of these emotions. But let's go into, you say at one point there was an usher. And for those that don't know what an usher is somebody who basically would clean the church or take up the money during services. Can you go into a little bit of at one point this person, this usher, hurt somebody, hurt children?
Yeah, we literally had a guy in our church who, he was one of the main ushers. He would pass the plate around with money. He would say prayers. He would work on the soundboard and shake your hand and say hallelujah. But he was definitely a registered sex offender who had spent time in prison. And but that's okay. And that's the hypocrisy of the church, is like, well, God can deliver, and it's okay if someone has feelings like that, because that's normal. It's normal to sexually prey on women or children. But they looked at me like I was worse than that. Like, that person could be in ministry, that person was okay, and God had the power to change, but I was the one who was wicked and had a demon spirit within me.
So you have a registered sex offender who is a part of this community. And as like, do you have any idea of like, are they, not that you might not, but do you have any idea, are they doing background checks on these people? Like what is it that you like, did you guys find out he was a registered sex offender, or it just kind of got passed around that here's this man who's a registered sex offender who's part of this community, but it's okay?
Yeah, because I mean, it was actually part of his testimony. Like, and people don't know what that is. That means like, like that he would tell people like this is who I used to be, but God changed me, and so he was open about it. So it was just kind of out there. So I mean, I guess in the church world, it's like, well, hallelujah, look at him, he's serving God now, even though I'm sorry, but like you don't change from that, and that's disgusting. He was around the nursery. We had little kids everywhere, all over the place. You know what I mean? So, but they were fine with that. But me, they wouldn't let me be in a car by myself with a female because I might do something to them.
My gosh. And that's the, I was just thinking about this before this interview. That's just so crazy that you mentioned the fact that they would literally love to find people with the worst stories. Like for them, finding somebody who just came out of prison, being a sex offender, registered sex offender, he just got out of prison for that, or some other, he's this other person who's a thief, or if your story was really big and bad, they loved it. They loved to convert people with those kind of stories, because now they're able to use their story as a tool, as a tactic to convert other bad, terrible people who are going to hell with these stories, to show them that they can come in and we will accept you and we will love you. And so the worse your story was, the better. And it was very sickening. And that's what the testimony is your story showing how horrific of a sinner you were, but I mean, they're coming in, bringing in these things that they were like literally in prison for.
Yeah, yeah.
So how safe?
They loved me prior to knowing about being gay, because I had a big powerful testimony. I was like a suicidal kid who wanted to do another Columbine. Like I was very angry and hateful from the life that I had. And so they love that. They love that piece. Like, oh yeah, hell yeah, this girl is little, she was crazy, little gothic kid, and then now look at her, hallelujah. But the gay thing is just like, like no, we don't need to go there. Like, like it just, I don't know. It's they were very choosy with what they were okay with, and any kind of LGBTQ, like it's like the ultimate thing that you can't be. Like you can rape children, but you can't be gay. So
Yeah, it's very it's hatred. I think that it goes beyond them just being they're just a little judgmental. No, it is hate. It is hatred for these people. And I think for somebody who, I mean, let's just be honest, like, when you're a minority, or if you're different according to society, but you're not a part of that, then it's easy for you to just look into it outside, like, you're outside of it and you're looking in and you're just like, oh, that's so sad for them. But, a lot of times you don't understand or feel what these people are actually feeling and going through. And here you are, you're part of this community, but you're inside of this church, okay? Because let's just mention that you don't know it's a cult at this point, okay? You're inside of this church of love since you were 13, and now you're realizing that you do have affection, or attraction for the same sex. And so that's when now it's like, oh, wait, I don't think so. We're not going to have this here. And I myself I also seen the things they would do. When I was part of this place, I seen the things that they would do to people who said they were gay, or they thought they were gay, or they wouldn't even say they were. If they had any kind of sense that you might be, they automatically pushed you into this corner and try to heavily, heavily convert you back into, being normal. And the things that I seen them do were sickening. It was disgusting, and it was hatred. It was pure hatred. and it could even be considered abuse. And so you said that they mentioned, you know, you're demon possessed because you're gay. We have to get this demon out of you. You know, there's this generational curse on you because you're gay, which I'm sure people who have heard this before, especially if you come from any kind of religion, especially you don't have to be in this cult to hear the things that, you know, there are religions that say that being gay is evil, wrong, you're going to go to hell, you should be stoned. I mean, this is the stuff that's really out there. But for you to be in this place when you were 13 and you felt you finally were accepted, you finally had people who loved you, and then all of a sudden they find this about you or start sensing this, or they're like, wait a minute, do they actually love you? Like at this point, are you not feeling what has changed? Like, are they stop inviting you out? Do they stop? Do they try to like slowly get rid of you? Like, what are they doing to? Or are they just trying to convert you back to like, no, you just like stop being gay? Like, what are they saying? What are they doing? Is there anything else that you remember them saying that made you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, it was very much just like, you know, like you just need to get really involved in the church and you know, get that, you know, almost like distract yourself from it. They're also just like, you know, all you need is a man. The solution to the churches is always a man. You just need to get married and have a family, have babies, be a pastor's wife. That's the answer. Like God will bring me the man of my dreams, and that's just gonna fix this. You know, like you know, you're not gay. You just haven't met the right man yet. Um, and so the point was like, you know, just stay involved with the church like as much as possible. Like, you know, the more you're in church, at least you can't be out doing gay things. But it was just always very uncomfortable because, you know, I would have people, you know, I was like, the church teaches you to be very open with your struggles, like and confess. And I would confess things and my feelings and my struggles with my pastor because I was trying so hard to not be gay. Like I tried with all my freaking heart to not be gay. I hated myself so much. Like every time an evangelist would come into town, like I would just be the girl weeping at the altar, hating myself. And
Mm.
these men would sense that, you know, because it's pretty easy to tell when somebody hates themselves. And they're just like, you know, you have so much self hatred. It's like, well, I wonder why. Because, you know, I can't change who I am, but, you know, like I can't stop how I feel. I remember even our head pastor at our mother church, you know, had told one of the members there who had been a lesbian for many years and started going to church, you know, like I understand that you never want to be with a man, but you don't have to be, but you can just be in church by yourself. Like, and so it's like there's almost this like feeling in the church, like they understood that genuinely gay people can't change, and not that they were okay with that, but they know like we can't change you, we just don't want you to act upon it. Like so, like their solution basically for someone like me is like, well, just be in church the rest of your life, keep your feelings to yourself, don't act upon it, and you can still make it to heaven. But just, I mean, it was just so fake because it's like you're literally acknowledging that I'm gay and I can't change, you can't change me, I can't change me, but I just have to, you know, go to church and be lonely the rest of my life. Like that was their solution for me. On top of the shame of people, you know, hearing things about you, I would have women in the church be like, well, you can come over, just don't like hit on me or don't look at me. Like, and so you end up feeling like people are looking at you like you're disgusting, because in the fellowship, uh, like gay people are disgusting. Like they, you know, we would get, it was like if you had a pastor say the word faggot, people would start clapping and cheering like, oh yeah, faggots, oh disgusting, amen. Like the and so I'm just like sitting there like feeling so horrible about myself, trying so hard not to be one of these faggots that they hate so much, but I was.
Yeah, and I have to say that they do they do have recorded audio on YouTube. I should probably link it, but trigger warning because that's such an abusive word, but an emotionally abusive word. I'm gonna probably post that link down below after. There is audio on YouTube if it's still up. I just watched it or listened to it like about a week ago of the founder of this church who is preaching, and he is saying that word continuously, and you can hear the audience, which is the community, the cult, the church, cheering and clapping, and they were all okay with that. And I'm like, they have audio, like they have audio of this man saying that, and they have more audio than just one of him even sharing stories of him, how proud and happy he is that he's able to tell people this and use that word, which causes them to want to, get saved and change. And one of the stories is that he even made a straight man, the man was not even gay, but he was wearing an earring, and he was able to shame this and this man was not even part of the cult. He just walked into a service, and he was able, and he's sharing this, and there's the audio on YouTube of him sharing the story of him saying, I was able to make him take off his earring, because if you wear an earring, and he said the word, and he was so happy about it. And the crowd in the back are just like if they were at a concert, they're just
Yeah, they're
yelling and
ecstatic. They're ecstatic.
yeah, it's like that hatred is just something inside of them that they enjoy.
And the creepy thing is that it's in their mind it's justified.
Mm.
It's, like when people would come to church, like couples who aren't married, they were like okay with that. They're like, well, it's okay because they're a straight couple, they could get married. And that's the answer. Like, well, they're at least they're straight, and hallelujah, they can get married and serve God. Like, so they would totally be fine with a fornicator coming into the church and being part of the church for a while. But if people who were very gay looking like people would like look at them in disgust, like like they're terrified that spirit would jump on them. I remember our head pastor's wife as well would tell us that homosexuality was a recruiting spirit and that it was trying to convert. So if I had it, I was trying to actively convert other people to be gay. And I'm like, I'm not trying to make anybody gay. Like
You're like, that's not how it works.
no. And they would also try to suggest like, well, it's because you didn't have a mother, or it's you must have been sexually abused. And I'm like, no, I was not sexually abused. And I didn't have my mother in my life for a while, but again, that has nothing to do with the fact that little 5-year-old Tyffany with big brown eyes is like looking at this little beautiful girl, like just getting Twitter pated. Like, I don't, I guess if that makes me a a cursed person, whatever. But I was very innocent. Like, I was very, very innocent, and that's just who I was. But I really struggled with so much self-hatred. For that reason, I struggled with my weight quite a bit as well, because I hated myself so much. Again, you don't have any outlets. Like, under the church, like I had gotten, over 350 pounds because my only comfort in anything was food. Like, well, so people invite you out to eat, and like, so it's like I almost was like creating the shell around me of protection, which just led to more self-hatred. Like, and now, like, you're overweight and you're unattractive, and now a man doesn't want you. No man is going to want to marry you. So it's like, you can't win.
Yeah, that's so sad. I mean, this is such emotional abuse to and psychological abuse, because this is not something that just happens and then um goes away. Like, you have to carry this, you have to deal with this. And for those that say, I don't understand why you would stay in this place if they're making you feel this way, this is one of the, I think, one of the top things for somebody that has never been in an environment like this. So I like to just say that this is very similar to any toxic environment. So that you can this the similarities are almost like a toxic relationship, an abusive relationship, an abusive co-worker, abusive environment, workplace, because the similarities of, I can't just leave. I've been here since I was 13. And you're working basically for them. I would say that you're in this place and you're helping convert. You're helping to bring in more sinners, like they like to call it. That you're helping them build this place. And if you're married, right, then you're also helping build more baby churches and more cults in the world. So you're actually working for them, but of course you're not getting paid. And so you can't just leave. This is where your everything is coming from. And of course, the research of what happens inside of a cult. You're literally being brainwashed. You're literally being groomed and manipulated. So this is real. This is not something that you can just you one day snap out of it. It takes layers. Like you slowly get there. But and then also I like to mention the trials. The trials that they like to say is the more you can endure for their God, the more godly you are.
Right.
And so the more you can endure, the better. So you're taking on the abuse, you're taking on everything they're throwing at you. But you're not seeing it as abuse. I didn't even know that word existed in that place. I didn't, and I'm just thinking I'm being a good Christian for taking the abuse. I'm taking it and I feel good because at the end of the day I'm like, I'm a damn good Christian.
Yeah.
Like I'm taking it like Jesus. Like, and they would use a scripture in the Bible that would say that, Jesus was abused for us. So now it's okay basically to be abused because he did it. So don't you want to be like him? Don't your whole desire is one day I get to die and go with him. So that's the thing is that's one of the reasons as well that you don't just leave, because you're like, oh, I can take this. And even though you're going home and probably crying and, so many depression, suicidal, all of that. But when you go back to the place that you're there almost every single day, you're putting on a smile and you're, and then like for you going through the self-hatred and crying, they actually like that. They actually enjoy somebody enduring pain because it shows how much you are desperate to live your life for God, for their God.
Right.
So them seeing you crying and all of that, and me as well, it's almost like a thrill. It's like a turn on even, like, yeah, like take it. And the thing is that their God doesn't exist. This God that is misogynistic and this God that is judgmental and hate and has this extreme hatred for women or anyone who has a vagina, anybody that is different than them, then automatically this God is onto you. And I really believe for me that this God of theirs existed in their own mind. Like it was passed down, of course, from like where the beginning of religion came from, but it's like this God of theirs is this he's scary.
Yeah, I really struggled with that whole authoritarian like word that you used. Like I remember being a woman specifically. I remember again that one of the main sources of my trauma was from my youth pastor. He would, literally like point at me and get in my face, really close to my face, and be and like, you need to submit. You're a woman, like, you're not allowed to speak, and like I wasn't allowed to have that voice. And I went through two pastors, like in the church, sometimes pastors leave and then another pastor comes in. Like, so that particular pastor was highly abusive and highly narcissistic. And would make me feel so horrible about myself. Like, I mean, I would just be petrified of this person all the time. And that followed me for a really long time. Like, um, I would literally be bawling in front of my bosses. Every single job I had, I couldn't have a meeting, a simple meeting about something simple with a boss without having a panic attack and just bawling because of the abuse that I experienced in the church from being a woman who was supposed to just be submissive and scared. And I ended up being diagnosed with complex, PTSD, from this. And barely in 2022, despite leaving the church in 2013, like I'm barely starting to be okay with authority. I mean, it's like the past two bosses I've had, I still tell them forewarning, like, hey, I have a little bit of trauma in the past. I struggle with a little bit of talking with authority, so please forgive me. And, I'm able to actually do that now. But I mean, I had so many years of abuse where like I almost had to go on disability for a while because the panic attacks and everything from the church was so bad that I couldn't work, I couldn't drive, I couldn't go to the store. Like I was just like my mind and my spirit was like destroyed.
Gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's something that is so real. And for anybody who's watching and maybe they're still in this place, I'm hoping this reaches everybody, anybody. You know, this is a sign that this place, even if you don't want to call it a cult, even if you still want to call it a church because it makes you feel better, or because I would feel another reason why somebody wouldn't want to call it a cult as well, from experience, would be because you're basing this church as God.
Right.
And so for somebody who's grown up in religion and has believed in this one way for as long as they can remember, for you to say that this church is not good or something's wrong with it or there's abuse literally going on in it, that would have to mean that God is not good. And that can be traumatizing as well. So there's a lot of layers that are involved to finally be free and feel that freedom inside of you, because even though you escape this place, now you're having to deal with all of these side effects, all of these symptoms, and diagnosed with real shit. Like, this is real. Like, this is even people that are professionals that are not even in this place are seeing it for what it is, and they're diagnosing you and giving you validation that what you experienced is physically traumatizing. This is not something that just happened and goes away. You don't just get up and leave this place and everything gets better, because for myself and for those that I've interviewed as well, those that have finally left, now they have to deal with the aftermath, with this aftermath. It's like a bomb exploded. And now you have to take care of all these pieces of yourself that are blown all over the place. And they're not there to help you. And they're not there to help with therapy and professional, real people that can help you. Now you're left to yourself. Now they don't even want to talk to you. Now they don't even know who you are anymore. And you're invisible. And the community that you've been with for so many years, gone.
Yeah. And, especially for being gay, like, if somebody leaves the church, for drugs or alcohol, or they get a boyfriend, they, whatever, they're just like, whatever, for me, like I ended up, running into church people, years after I left, and they were like, "Oh my God, we heard about all the things that you did." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And there were some really terrible rumors that these people literally fabricated in their heads that didn't happen. Like they said that I was doing very vulgar sexual things inside the church, or on the altar. I'm like, okay, that never happens. Like, I don't know, I mean, it just made me think. I'm like, what sick man, like sick pastor, like comes up with these things? And I'm like, if you're imagining me doing these things, like that's in your head, dude. Like that's kind of gross, like honestly, like because like none of those things happened. And it's funny to this day where I'm like, oh wow, like I lived a pretty a pretty crazy lifestyle, according to them, but none of those things were real. But I think they just needed to justify why they could paint me to be such a monster, or like as such a disgusting human being. Like they had to create me to be disgusting.
Yeah, they had to do that because it would take it off on them.
Yeah. I
Okay, so let's go into you being kicked out.
yeah.
Because for those that have that have escaped, like myself, I willingly just didn't show up one day. But what about those? Because there's many, and they're coming out of the shadows, and I can't wait to hear more of their stories. But for those that have been kicked out, you were literally kicked out, which at the time probably feels terrible. But now looking back, you're like, well, at least I got out. But I want to talk about, how do they kick someone out? Like, what do they do?
And the crazy thing is that in church there would be couples, young couples, a guy and a girl, who would mess up and fornicate, and the solution for the church was just go get married, and then everything's fine as long as, hey, you got a penis, you got a vagina, you're good. God's totally cool with that. um being gay, you don't have that option. And again, because I was so terrified of the God that they fabricated, I felt the need to confess things to my pastor, even though that really wasn't like a Christian practice, like a normal Christian practice. That's very Catholic. But I was so petrified of this man. Like he was terrifying. I felt like I had to, like I felt like all these feelings and the things that I felt like I had to confess. And so it would start out to where he would sit me down from ministry and give me time to get out of my gayness, and I would have to sit there in shame, and people would know. They would be like, well, Tyffany sat down for 6 months, and they would, and everyone would know. And there was always that, like, well, we know why, but we're not going to say why we know why. I think honestly, being gay is what helped get me out of the church, because opportunities kept presenting themselves, and I'm a human being. I'm a woman with desires for love and affection, just like any other normal human being. And one of the relationships that I started feelings for a girl, and at the time I was the piano player in the church, and I felt like I couldn't live a double life anymore. Like I'm like, I love this girl, and I'm doing the something innocent, like cuddling someone at night. God, that's so terrible. We're cuddling. But I when I'm at church, I feel like God's gonna strike me with a bolt of lightning. Like, I would have heavy panic attacks about God killing me. So I confessed what I was doing to my pastor, and he immediately, like, I had actually wrote him an email, because it was hard for me to talk to him because I was scared of him. So I emailed him. He forwarded my email to his pastor in our mother church, and they were just completely repulsed by me. And he wrote me back a long email, told me to come to the church. I met he and his wife in the office, and they flipped to the Old Testament, and they found a random scripture in the Bible, and they read it to me. And the gist of the scripture was, the Israelites had somebody in their encampment who had something hidden under a tent. And when it was exposed, they kicked this person out of the tent. And the curse that was on that people was finally removed, because they got rid of that hidden thing. And they said that I was that hidden thing, and that I needed to be removed from the church, because I was the reason that the church wasn't thriving. Like, it was because of me, and me being gay and everything that I was doing. And so I had to be expelled from the church. Uh, I was bawling. I was crying. Like, I, that was like, it was devastating for me, because despite wanting to leave the church, like I was terrified of leaving the church, because I was afraid of the repercussions. Like, I really genuinely thought God was going to kill me. So I'm just like, crap, if I'm not under the covering of the church, like, I'm totally fair game for God for God to kill me now. You know.
Oh my gosh.
So it was shortly after that. My pastor told me that I was not to talk to anyone. nobody was allowed to talk to me. They were not allowed to reach out to me. They were not allowed to see me in person. And that's when I started hearing rumors about the things that I never did, but in his mind, I did. And then again, they were really disgusting things that no respectful person would actually do. So it was like an insult to my integrity as well. Like wow, you would say that I did that? Like that's kind of terrible. But
Yeah.
um, it was horrible because my brother at the time was still going to church. So he wasn't kicked out, but so I got to see my brother go to church, and I had to stay home and feel that shame, and have people at church pray for me, but you know also be disgusted with me, because they were very open with why I was kicked out, like because it was acceptable to talk about, like she was kicked out because like she's gay, and that is just absolutely unacceptable. So like it was okay for them to talk about it and be disgusted with me. So I felt that shame as well of like, it's not like I just left the church and they're assuming I'm out there drinking and clubbing. They're like, no, like this filthy lesbian is doing filthy lesbian things. Like, like I don't know. It took a long time. I mean, I would cry so much. Like it was a really difficult time.
Yeah. That's, you were 13 when you came into this place. And now you're how old? Like, years later, now they're getting rid of you. And this church is supposedly this church of love. And side note, it's still functioning today. It's known as the Potter's House uh, Fellowship Church. It's known as the Door Christian Church. I think it's also known as Victory Chapel, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm right. Um, but according to their website, they do have about 3,000 same exact churches under the same authoritative founder in Prescott, Arizona. So they're everywhere. I don't, that's one of the things that really makes me confused is the fact that they have been in the news. Again, you can find old black and white videos of TV reporters reporting on this place, telling people that they think it's a cult, and then it kind of quiets down, and now you don't really, it's not in the news anymore. And now they've been able to build three. When I left it was like 2,500. Now it's up to 3,000. So I don't, there's, it just seems like they're not stopping. And if we can't stop them, we just want at least to have our stories told.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely other gay kids that, obviously none of them are in church now, thank God. But, even one of the pastor's sons, was born and super, super freaking feminine from the time he was a little kid. And, now he's gay, but totally, you know, expunged from the church as well, like, and I'm like, well, explain that one. This kid was born within the church to good Christian parents. So are you still saying that this kid is cursed? Like this kid is demon possessed? Like this kid was born in church, but he's super gay. Like, so their logic is just so incredibly flawed. And it makes me sad because I know there were a handful of us that we all struggled. We all knew each other struggled, and we would all talk about our struggles. But we all know that we can't change. One of my best friends like was gay and kicked out of the church, and she passed away, unfortunately. And I wanted to make a point to talk about her as well because she
Yeah.
doesn't talk about her story, like 'cause she's not here anymore.
That's the next place we were going. I'm so glad you brought it up because I do want to go into your friend here that was her death was horrific. And then you can go ahead and talk about her and state her name as well, because your interview here is also in memory of her, because like you said, she's not here to speak of her story, and I'm sure there's others that their stories will never be told. And so through this I would love to have her remembrance of, like, she endured this, and then when she passed on, there was no stopping. They did not have any respect.
Mm-mm. Yeah, she her name was Randall. So we called her Randy. Um, she ended up changing her name to Renee because she was really trying to become more feminine, like the church wanted her to. But her name was Randy, so her name was Randi Benjamin. She was born in St. Croix. She was very, very proud of that, and I feel for her. She had a pretty broken life over there, and her mother passed away when she was very young, like maybe around 8 or 9 years old, and she was sent to the United States to live with her relative, who was a pastor's wife in our cult. And so she ended up having to be forced to grow up in this cult. I had the pleasure of meeting her when I was 13, and she was 15. She was 2 years older than me. She was born on October 20th, and every year I remember her birthday, like because I actually met her on her birthday, which is crazy. Um, their church was in New Mexico, and they were our head church, and they would send up like teens to like perform plays and stuff, and that's where I met her, and we were really good friends for years. And um, despite what the church will have you believe, there was never anything weird about us. Like we were never together. We were straight, strictly friends. But she she got, like me, got kicked out of the church several times, in and out. Eventually she ended up moving to Kansas, where her sister was a pastor's wife, and she wasn't going to church at the time. I remember, like, it was really close to the time she died. She died in February of 2016, if I'm not mistaken. And it was right around my birthday, and I was supposed to come see her, like, for my birthday. Like, I was like, "Do we haven't seen each other? Like, I would love to see you." And I remember her telling me the story, and she was so heartbroken. She said that, she's in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. It's Newton, Kansas. It's a little tiny town outside of Wichita, and her car broke down. And she called her sister, a pastor's wife, and was like, "Hey, like, my car broke down. Can you come get me?" Like, so her sister drove out like 20 minutes out of her way, all the way to where Randy was, and told her, "I can't help you because of the lifestyle that you're living," and drove off. like, I'm like, what was that for? Like, what? That was like the most unchristianly thing you could ever do to somebody. And I remember she was so heartbroken about that. And it really hurt me because I knew her sister, and, I will never say that the people in the church are all horrible, terrible people. They were good people. They just were very brainwashed. And so I was extremely disappointed by that, because I couldn't imagine this person to be hateful, because she was always, mostly very kind to me. And for her to treat her own sister like that, like, I felt for Randy, and I was like, "I am so sorry." Like, I'm just like, "Why are you in Kansas? Like, move to Denver, dude. Like, get out of there. Like, you have no reason to be there. Like, your family doesn't want you there anyway. So, like, screw it. Like, don't be around them." And it was shortly after that that she passed away. Like, it was a completely freak thing. She was working at like a factory, and there was a crazed man there. And from what I understand is, he would try to like hit on her among other people. And obviously she wasn't having it. She presented herself in a very, masculine way. And he had a lot of deep psychological issues, and he stole a gun, and he went to her workplace, and she was one of the people that he definitely targeted. And I don't know all of the details surrounding her death, but from what I was told is that she probably died very painfully and very slowly, because there was multiple gunshot wounds, um, maybe even in her head or her chest. And so it was not an easy death, um, which is all very traumatizing in itself. And you would think that the church would be there to uplift and support and help heal. And I all the way from Denver, I was a 911 dispatcher at the time. I was able to get off work. I drove all the way to Kansas for the funeral, despite the fact that I had already left the church at this point in time. It was it was really traumatizing and scary because I knew I was going to see a bunch of church people, including one of the head pastors who had helped kick me out. But I didn't care. I was like, I'm going to go and support this funeral, even if it's at one of the fellowship churches. I don't care. And it was the most awful thing I've ever experienced. You know, all of her actual friends who didn't go to church showed up. You know, there's like 15 people who genuinely loved her and accepted her and cared about her. And they're all, you know, in this little tiny church with us. And I've been to many funerals within the church, and they're all very, it's okay, you know, they're in a better place, you know, God has them, God has grace. Randy didn't get that. Um, she the sermon was very like, well, she wasn't serving God at the time, and she wasn't living a Christian lifestyle at the time. We could only hope that she had enough time to repent, but she probably didn't. And so it was almost like the message was like, don't be like Randy. Like, there was no like, you know, it's okay because she's not suffering anymore, she's with God. None of that. Like, none of the things that they would say for a normal straight person, like, he didn't say that for her. And her friends were just shocked. Like, they were all like, what was that? Like, they were all heartbroken. They're like, we don't know these people. Like, like, it wasn't even a funeral, so they had to go to a park nearby and cry and grieve on their own because they found no compassion and within the church. And one of my friends, you know, growing up became a pastor's wife, and she was a pastor's wife in that area as well. And she asked me, she's like, well, do you want to come, you know, over after, you know, for after the funeral? I said, no. I was like, I don't. Like, I was like, that was the worst thing you guys could have ever done for her. Like, I was like, any chance that you guys wanted of having those 15 friends come to church and serve God and get saved, I was like, you just destroyed that. I was like, because they don't want anything to do with God. And I was like, I'm going to go with them. Like, and I did. Like, it's hard to talk about because it's just so sad. No.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, that's that's I mean, that's fucking horrific. That's in 2016. That's not too long ago.
She didn't deserve that. So.
No. And I am thankful that you shared that story, because that is something that needs to be out there.
Right.
Because do you know if any of those people throughout your whole entire time there, but especially the ones that did the memorial service for your friend, do you have any idea if any of them are still today in those positions?
Like the church people, all of them are. They're all still going to church, serving God, and you know, they look back on it, you know, as a sad time. And I was pissed. Again, I had already been out of the church for 3 years at this point, and I didn't mean to scold my friend that I grew up with, but I scolded her. She's a pastor's wife, and I'm like, how dare you? Like, how could you do that? Like, I was like, what the hell was that? Like, I was like, that, I was like, I've never heard something more hateful in my life. I was like, this girl was shot full of bullets. Like, you know, like, I don't know. It changed everything, you know? I mean, not that I was ever going to go back, but my perspective on the church completely changed. Like, and not that I'm out, you know, like actively being anti-fellowship or whatever. Like, I don't like that. The church doesn't mean anything to me anymore. It doesn't have that much power over me anymore. But I won't call it a church. It is a cult. It is what it is. Like, you don't get my respect anymore. Like, because I see you, you know, for who you really are, and you like, you're hateful and you're awful. And yeah, that was a good nail in the coffin, honestly.
That is so sad. It's just terrible. And the thing that is even scary is that this is just one. Like, you know, how many of these so-called memorial services have they had or are still having that, people within the cult who passed, and because they didn't live up to their book and their religion, what are some of the things that they saying that, little the little ones, the ones that are being born into it, or the ones that are being groomed into it, like yourself at 13, and this is the road that they're going on, for the fact that, some of these people that went in at 13, 16, they're just trying to be happy, man. They're just trying to make a better world, but instead this is the world they're creating: hate, abuse, and it's continuous. Like, it doesn't, there's no end to it at this point right now, to this, as we're doing this interview, there is no stopping point for them, because they feel, like you said, they feel like what they're doing is right,
They're
because
justified.
justified.
They, from what I understand from people I still talk to, I'm not going to make this a political discussion, but they are all extremely right wing, conservative, um, people, and it's not supposed to be something that's preached over the pulpit, but it totally is. And so the crazy anti-gay agenda is almost like it's like their holy battle. Like we will fight against the gays because that's what we need to do. And look, even the politicians support us. Like, I mean, I would not want to be in the fellowship right now as myself, like, because it was bad then, but it would just, I mean, I would probably even kill myself now. Like, I mean, it is so horrible now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's way worse than when we were in it.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I hope that if there are any LGBTQ plus questioning people out there, like, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. Like, if you need to, like I got you. Like we are all blood and family, and I will help you in any way that I can.
Beautiful. And I also posted two links also in the description box of resources and support for anybody that is having to deal with this, whether inside of this place or not. But specifically, if you know of anyone in this place, in this cult, in this, church, that is, these things are being done to them. um, I really hope that this gets out to somebody that they can either see it for themselves, or secretly send the link to the person that may be dealing with the things that come with being shamed and being like ridiculed and hated, because you choose to walk a path that they don't want. And it's evil, and you're going to go to hell. And it's like, okay, if it's evil, okay, even let's just say it is evil, and I'm going to go to hell. Let me go to hell. Like, let me do what I'm going to do, because it's my life, right? Like, it's not like it's illegal, or, we're consenting adults. Like, what is your cry? What is it that you feel like you have to force a human being to walk this road that you're walking? Like, you want to walk that road, that's fine. Like, you are able to. But if you are able to, do you understand what that means? That means I'm able to walk the road that I want.
Right. And I also want to say that, like, when you leave the cult, they like to try to say that, well, you know what, they're going to be miserable. They'll come crawling back. Their life is going to be so messed up, and they're going to be so broken. They actually pray. It was a prayer in my church. God, make them miserable in their, that one.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm living my best life. I have learned to love myself. I was able to get rid of the spiritual weight that I had. I have an amazing personality. I have beautiful people in my life. I have an amazing job. I have my own home. I mean, I have no complaints. My life is beautiful and perfect, and I am exactly the person who I was made to be. So they can say that I'm cursed and horrible, but I love my life, and I'm doing just fine.
Yeah, you don't look cursed. You don't look miserable.
I'm doing pretty good.
Good. I'm proud of you. And just so everybody knows, like I did not know you, before we met. Before the we met like what, like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, and you're just like, "Hey, I do a podcast, like, wanna talk?" And so, I mean, yeah, I do not know this lady. I wish I did. She seems hella cool, but
I'm so glad that you did. It's just it's something that, it's not like we're going on this rampage of, oh, this place is so bad. And eh, like, we're literally just sharing our stories. We are
yeah,
literally sharing our raw, open hearted stories that we endured in this place. And that is still going on.
yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, like, I'm not fabricating anything. Like, I'm sorry if the truth offends you. My bad. Like, it happened. Sorry, you know.
Right. And I'm just so glad that you were able to get out of it alive. I mean, honestly, leaving and having to come back into society, because you go in when you're 13, and then now you're coming out as a woman, an adult. And what are some of the healing aspects that you feel really helped you? Because for those that are like, I'm scared to leave, like I'm scared to leave because I'm scared, um like what is some of the things that you can say that really helped you, because I'm sure you had nightmares or dreams. I know I did. But anything that helped you, what is the healing? Because I know you said you're diagnosed with CPTSD. I think that you mentioned about like anxiety and depression and having to be on medication for that. What are some of the healing things that you really feel helped you?
One thing in particular was, I was very fortunate to find this. It was a Japanese counselor, and he used a very different type of counseling that I'd ever heard of. It was like based on like body trauma. And so what he would ask us in when I like is I would constantly just bawl in our sessions, but he would be like, "Where do you feel it in your body?" And I would, depending on what the emotion was or what we were talking about, sometimes it would be in my chest, sometimes it would be in my stomach, sometimes it would, be in my throat. But he would make me feel these things and use certain techniques and make me feel them and then be able to release them. And he helped me get to the point where I was going to be on disability, to the point where I was able to go out and get another job again, because I was able to even physically heal some of that trauma that I was having, because there was so much pent up that, again, I was having to go to the emergency room all the time because I was waking up having panic attacks that God was like punishing me to kill me. I would wake up with like feeling like my limbs were going numb, and that God was giving me a stroke to punish me for leaving the church, that God was giving me a heart attack. Like I would wake up and just like petrified, and it wouldn't even make any sense. It was completely irrational, but it was from the trauma of just fear and anxiety. And so I was on medication. I've been on medication for some time, but I'm doing a lot better. And also just exploring spirituality in general like really helped. Like, in my opinion, who we call God and the universe is too big to put in a little tiny box of Christianity or Islam. Like, and so I always tell people, like, find what resonates with you. I know what resonates with me. I definitely believe in, reincarnation and all things, metaphysical and spiritual. And, I have a lot of my own spiritual gifts that I had even during time that I went to church that I use now. I have a clairvoyance and clair audio. I have all these things, and so I embrace those things. Like, those are things that I thought made me evil, and I was told that they were evil, and I couldn't possibly have those things because I was a woman, and but I do, and so I use them now, and I feel very much connected to source and spirit now. I'm by no means an angry, bitter atheist or something. Like, I'm totally at one and at peace with what I call the universe. And again, I just tell people to find what resonates with you, because it could be different for everyone else, but there's definitely something out there that is loving and is peaceful, that isn't something that makes you hate yourself and want to, cry to sleep at night, because you hate yourself so much.
Yeah, and the journey that you have come, there's a big journey there. Like, I'm super proud of you, and I just like applaud to your strengths. Like, I like to say, I bow to your strengths. I bow to the strength that it took to endure the hatred and the abuse of this so-called church that was supposed to be there as a supportive community, and instead became a nightmare, and then get rid of you and go on to the next.
Yeah. And I'm still very much looked at with disgust. And that bothered me for a long time. These were people that I considered to be family, like these people saw me grow up and they look at me in disgust now. I'm okay with it now. Like, I'm cool. Like, hey, I'll see you at the store. Hey, bro, how you doing? But it hurt for a long time. Like, I'm like, these people think I'm a monster, and to this day, I guess they can picture whatever they want about me in their sick minds, but it is what it is. So
I would say a monster is somebody who is lashing out with hatred and judgment against somebody that is just being a loving human being. Like,
yeah,
that.
I'm a pretty nice person. I mean, I freaking I'm a hug monster. I love people, but yeah, to them I'm the monster. I guess it's all a matter of perspective. But I'll be the monster if they need me to be, but I know I'm not. So
Right. No, it just takes off the attention off of them, and they're really good at doing that. They've done that, like I said, since I think it was the 70s or the 80s. So, it's being passed down, and and I mean, let's be honest, they're doing a pretty damn good job at it if they're able to, exceed up to 3,000 cults worldwide. I mean, they're doing something. They're preying on the vulnerable, they're preying on the young, and especially 13, 16-year-olds, because we can speak with experience, and so that's one way they're doing it. But I just want to end with, if there is somebody in the LGBTQ community, or like they haven't come out yet because they're in this place where they can't even begin to speak it. They can't even speak it, you know? I I want you to leave them with a message. Again, there's resources, links below, but what is, whether they're in this place, especially in this place, or any kind. I mean, this could be somebody who's even sadly in a family that is like, we will not accept this, and so they're choosing to not speak of it. So what would be your message to somebody who's watching this, and they are at this point where they find themselves very depressed, sad, angry, and even worse? They could be at the point where they really do believe that this could be the last day for them.
yeah, I mean, I've struggled with depression my whole life, and hating myself, especially because of the church. And I can honestly tell you that now that I've embraced who I genuinely am, like love literally oozes out of me, and I am who I'm meant to be. I don't say this with vanity or pride, but people love to be around me. People love me. They think I'm so kind and so genuine, and like, this is who I'm supposed to be. Like, this is the Tyffany that I was always supposed to be, that they wanted to stifle down and destroy. And so, what you are isn't wrong. What you are isn't evil. Like, you are perfect as is. And um don't let them try to take away the light that is within you, because they dimmed my light for so long, and it was meant to, it was locked inside of this shell, and I was encased in hatred. And um you don't have to feel that way. Like, you're perfect. Like you are who you're supposed to be, and it's okay to be who you are, whatever that means. Just be yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tyffany. Is there anything else that we may have forgotten or anything that you feel like you want to say? I mean, this is your chance. Is there anything you feel that you would like to, a story or something that we forgot? Anything?
I can't think of anything specifically. I could definitely tell you, all the people that I know who were gay in the church and got shunned, guess what? They're all doing great as well. And we all reach out and they are living their best lives. And so there is life after the Potter's house. Like, I promise you, there is life. There's a life far more abundant than you ever experienced. Like, there's so much happiness and so much joy. And once you can shake off the fear that they instill in you, like, you're gonna be okay.
I love that. You're gonna be okay. That's,
Promise.
I remember years of wanting just to hear that you're gonna be okay, but I wouldn't hear that.
Yeah.
I would hear you need to pray more, you need to read your Bible more, you need to convert more people, it was always something that I needed to do. So, and I remember just crying and saying, I just want to hear everything is gonna be okay. That's it. But yes, we are proof that there is life after this place. There is proof you can thrive, you can enjoy life, enjoy yourself, enjoy your body, enjoy who you are, and it just, the joy and the love never ends. So thank you again, Tyffany. I'm super grateful, thankful. There's going to be some links below, so thank you again.
Thank you again for honoring Randy. That means the world to me. She's, she's in my heart always, always, and she's looking out for so many people who still love her. So I'm so honored to be able to talk about her. So.
Well, I'm so glad that you did, and she was surely remembered through you sharing your story. Yeah, her story was validated.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So until again, I will be having more interviews coming up for more brave souls. My next interview is going to be a beautiful soul that left and escaped the San Antonio, Texas cult called The Door. We're going to be talking to her next in the next episode. So subscribe to my channel to always be ready for the next interview. And again, if you would like to share your story, you can also contact me, and information will be below in the description box. So until next time, continue to speak up. Awesome. Bye, Tyffany. Thank you again.
All right. Love and light to everybody.